It was an unbelievable season for BYU. After going just 5-7 in 2023, they were picked low by many entering 2024, but the Cougars defied the odds, going 11-2. Really, were just 2 plays away from an unbeaten season, losing to Kansas and Arizona State by a combined 9 points. But despite the narrow margins, despite only 2 losses, those were enough to keep them out of the Big 12 championship game and enough to ultimately keep them out of the college football playoff. And now, unless you've been living under a rock, you have seen and heard about all the off-field issues regarding BYU, especially their quarterback, Jake Retzlaff, who's now off to Tulane. So with the departure of him, with a much more difficult schedule, with the departure of a handful of other key starters, it's going to be very difficult for BYU to match last year's success in 2025. You take a look at what happened last year before we start breaking down this roster. Again, an unbelievable season for the Cougars. 11-2. They started 9-0. They were being taken as a serious Big 12 title contender, as a playoff contender. But then again, they got upset by Kansas, who kind of went on a tear at the end of the season, and then lost to Arizona State, 9 combined points. They ended up beating Colorado in dominating fashion, 36-14 in their bowl game. So a really, really good year. But I will point out one thing, and this is not to take away anything from BYU. Last year's schedule was very favorable. The Cougars only beat 4 teams that finished the year with a winning record. The Big 12 was a good conference, but they had a lot of easy games on that schedule. Games also they could have lost. They probably should have lost to Oklahoma State, who was the worst team in the Big 12. BYU had to have a miracle by mid-October for them to win that game. They won in controversial fashion against Utah, only winning that game by 1 point. Overall, last year in Big 12 conference play, they played Arizona, Oklahoma State, UCF, Utah, Houston. All those teams finishing with the losing record, BYU winning 2 of those by a combined 4 points. And then again, 4 of their 11 wins against teams with a winning record, one of them was against SMU before the Mustangs really got going. That was like in week 2 before they made the change to Kevin Jennings. They beat Kansas State, a game they were nearly trailing at halftime before Kansas State just imploded on themselves. Nearly blew a 21-point lead to Baylor, and then they beat Colorado. 4 teams with a winning record is what they'd be out of 11 wins. I'm not saying this team wasn't good, but I'm saying they were very fortunate. They got a fortunate schedule. It's not the case this year. Take a look at the offense going into 2025. Obviously, Jake Retzlaff is gone. Last year, the offense improved by over 8 points per game. They averaged over 31.2 points per game, but Retzlaff is gone. He threw for over 2,900 yards, 20 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, rushed for over 400 yards, and 6 touchdowns. So he was an experienced quarterback that did really good things, although the touchdown-interception ratio could have been better. And now you look at BYU, and they've got to figure out who their guy is going to be. Is it going to be Trayson Bourget, who had some experience at Western Michigan? Is it going to be McKay Hillstead, who is a mobile quarterback, does show signs of mobility? Bourget a little bit too, and Hillstead some time at Utah State. Then you've got the freshman, right? Bear Bachmeier coming in from Stanford. Some would say he's the most capable quarterback, maybe the most dynamic quarterback, but not nearly as experienced as Bourget or Hillstead, who have a little bit of experience at FBS programs. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens with BYU on the quarterback front. Who do they decide to start? Is it going to be a guy that plays all 12 games? Are they going to go quarterback by committee? I don't know what Kalani Sitake is going to do. He's entering his 10th year, and this is a very unique situation for him in Provo. But outside of the quarterback situation, whoever they choose to start, I think whoever they start will do fine. They've got a great running back returning in LJ Martin, who rushed for over 700 yards and 7 touchdowns last year. Their top wide receiver in Chase Roberts, who had over 850 yards last year, he returns. The offensive line only gave up 18 sacks. They returned 3 starters. The offense, I really do think, will be okay. I don't think they're going to be as electric as they were last year, and I think they're going to go through some growing pains early on, but I don't think they're going to completely fall off by any means. The defense has 4 starters back after giving up just 19.6 points per game, and that was a massive improvement. They improved by over 10 points per game from 2023 to 2024, so great job by BYU in that regard. They only gave up 182 passing yards per game, only 126 rushing yards per game, but I look at this, and BYU's really got to find a way to improve their pass rush. They've got to get to the opposing quarterback a little bit more. They only had 20 sacks in 2024. They do add Keanu Tanavasa from Utah at nose tackle, so it's a big get there. Obviously, rivalries mean nothing in the world of college football with NIL, going from Utah to BYU. Justin Kirkland also coming out on the defensive line from Oklahoma State. I really like this linebacking core for BYU, especially because their leading tackler from last year, Isaiah Glasker, returns. He leads that core. He had 70 tackles last year, 3.5 sacks, 11 tackles for a loss. So that's a huge get. And then their sack leader last year, Jack Kelly, also returns that linebacking core. Kelly had 5 of the 20 sacks for BYU in 2024. So 25% of the sacks came from Jack Kelly. So that linebacking core looking really, really good. The secondary has a lot of experience there as well. Tanner Wall returns, had 3 interceptions last year. Evan Johnson returns. He had 2 interceptions last year. Overall, there are 4 players in the secondary that had at least 1 interception in 2024. A lot of experience there. So the defensive line, probably the biggest question, but one that I don't think will be too bad. So overall, this BYU team still has a lot of talent, still has a chance to be a really good team, but again, a tougher schedule than they had last year. I mean, you look, especially in the final 6 games, that's what's standing out to me. Starting with Utah all the way to the end. Utah, then at Iowa State, at Texas Tech, TCU, at Cincinnati, UCF. A very brutal stretch, meaning BYU, if they want to be in Big 12 title contention or go to a really good bowl game, whatever it may be, needs to do a lot of damage on the first part of their schedule. And I'll tell you right now, I think they'll start 3-0. They'll cruise past Portland State. They should cruise past Stanford, who I think will struggle mightily in the ACC this year. And I think they'll beat ECU, who was a good team last year. I think they'll be a solid team again this year, but a team that only returns 2 starters on defense. They lose their 1,100-yard rusher and Rajai Harris. So I look at ECU. I think they're going to go through a few growing pains early on. BYU, off the week of rest, should be able to get the job done, but they shouldn't sleep on that game. So 3-0 heading into Big 12 conference play, and they open it up on the road at Colorado, a rematch of last year's Alamo Bowl, where BYU's defense held the Buffaloes, who were led by Shedeur Sanders, led by Travis Hunter, held them to a season-low 210 yards. I mean, it was a masterclass defensive performance by BYU, and just a, complete dominant performance from literally start to finish. This year, though, it's interesting. You look at BYU, the first really true test for them now, and it's going to be on the road. Yes, they'll be on the road at ECU the week prior, but the first true test for them without Jake Retzlaff. So whoever's at quarterback, really a tough test against a Colorado team that returns 8 starters on the defensive side of the ball. The Buffaloes, I don't think are going to be that great this year. They're naturally going to take a step back, but I do have a lot of faith in Julian Lewis or Caden Salter, whoever it may be at quarterback, and I think the Buffaloes are going to find a way to get this win at home. I think home field advantage plays a little bit of a role here. I do think the Buffaloes defense up front is actually better than people realize. And I think, 4 or 5 weeks into the season, I would expect the Buffaloes offense to start to figure things out post Shedeur Sanders, post Travis Hunter life. So I think Colorado's finds a way to get this win. It will be very close, but BYU drops their first game. They're 3-1. But let's go ahead and make them 5-1 after wins over West Virginia and Arizona, 2 teams I think will struggle mightily in 2025. I look at West Virginia, new coach and Rich Rodriguez. It's a Friday night in Provo, which is always tough. They've got questions on the offensive line. Not going to be a good season for them. Same for Arizona. BYU's won the last 5 regular season meetings against the Wildcats. That includes a 41-19 win last year. The Wildcats have not improved that much from last year. I don't think BYU has regressed as much from last year. Even though it's on the road, they should find a way to win this game, especially with that strong secondary we mentioned. 5-1 heading in to the Holy War and heading in to the big stretch that we mentioned. So in the first 6 games, first half of the season, BYU's 5-1. They are very much in playoff contention. They're very much in Big 12 title contention. But what they do in the next 6 games will determine the success of their season. That's going to determine everything. This game against Utah on October 18th is very interesting. Big-time rivalry game, the 103rd Holy War. It is homecoming for BYU, mind you. And I look at this game, and last year was a wild one. BYU won 22-21, controversial fashion, some would say. This is a game where you look at it and you go, oh yeah, Utah's coming out for revenge and they're going to get this game because the Utes are going to be much better this year than they were last year. Finally not having to play quarterback carousel with the Cam Rising situation. But I'm actually going to pick BYU to win this game over the Utes. I really like this linebacking core for BYU, and I think one of the strengths for Utah's new quarterback, Devin Dampier, is running the ball. He needs to improve a lot as a passer, and I think he will, but if any defense can contain Dampier to the pocket and force him to win the game through the air, you have the advantage, because I don't think he's a phenomenal passer. So if you can contain him and not allow him to rush, he had 19 rushing touchdowns last year in New Mexico. So if BYU's linebacking core can contain him to the pocket or not allow him to take off with very long runs, picking up some 3rd and long, 2nd long, something like that, they're going to win this game, especially at home. So I have a lot of faith in BYU's defense to contain Dampier. I think it's a low-scoring game, just like it was last year, only 22-21. I think it's another low-scoring defensive battle game, but I like BYU's defense a lot. I like that they've got home field advantage. It is homecoming. Every time to me, kind of leaning towards the Cougars here. They get a massive win, and if you weren't believing in BYU before, you probably should be now, because that Utah team is going to be a probably top 15 program on October 18th. 6-1 for the Cougars. They've clinched bowl eligibility. Not that that's the goal. They expect a lot more, and then they get a lot tough. I mean, you look at that. Their final 5 games, 3 of them are on the road, and 2 of them against very good teams in Iowa State and Texas Tech. And I do believe BYU will lose both of those. I do believe they'll lose both of those. In Ames, that is a difficult place to play. Iowa State, very difficult place to play, and BYU is 0-5 all time against the Cyclones. Now you're going on the road against a veteran quarterback in Rocco Beck. I mean, you look at this game, most of the teams that BYU is going to play, their opponents are going to own the quarterback advantage strictly from an experience standpoint. Even, Bourget has a little bit of experience, Hillstead has a little bit of experience, Bachmeier doesn't have much experience at all. A lot of these opponents are going to have much better and more experienced quarterbacks, which is a huge edge. But Iowa State's defense, also not one to sleep on. They are elite defensively. They were kind of banged up at times last year. Should be fully healthy now. They're not going to lose this game at home. They are 6-2. And like I said, I think they're going to lose to Texas Tech. Really a battle for me between BYU's defense versus Texas Tech's offense. And I think the offense is way too much for this BYU defense to handle. Lubbock is not an easy place to play. Joey McGuire's done a phenomenal job at home there. Not so much on the road, but at home he's done a phenomenal job. We know the Red Raiders have an elite squad, a veteran quarterback in Baron Morton, really good wide receivers, really good defense that they kind of built back up to the transfer portal, the number 1 transfer portal class in the country. All signs to me pointing towards a Texas Tech victory here, and I think they'll win it by at least 10 points. So BYU at 6-1 drops to 6-3. That's going to eliminate them from everything. Big 12 title contention is gone. Playoff contention is gone. It's 3 conference losses, 3 overall losses. They're not going anywhere. Now it's just a matter of salvaging a really good bowl berth. They come back home to take on TCU, and the battle here is BYU's secondary versus Josh Hoover and TCU's passing attack. Hoover threw for nearly 4,000 yards last year and has a really good core of wide receivers returning, including his number 2 receiver in Eric McAllister. I actually like TCU to win this game in Provo. And I know people are going to be freaking out. 3 straight losses, things like that. How dare you? That's a winnable game, sure. But I just, again, from an experience standpoint, like TCU a lot more. They've got the quarterback edge. They've got the speed edge offensively. And they've got 8 starters back on defense. A defense had a really good secondary, meaning if that secondary plays as well as they did last year, they're going to make this BYU offense, which has quarterback questions, fairly one-dimensional. I don't think LJ Martin can win this game solely by himself. So TCU does come into Provo in a close game, gets the win, and then the Cougars go on the road to Cincinnati, and I think they lose that game. So I know I'll probably get destroyed in the comments here. I have no doubt. 4 straight losses, that's not going to happen. I mean, that did happen, I think 2 years in a row in 2022 and 2023, if I'm not mistaken. This is a Cincinnati team that I think is a lot better than they were last year. The last year's record didn't show how good the Cincinnati team was. They went 5-7. They probably should have been a 7 or 8 win team. Now, tons of experience coming back. Good running back core. Veteran quarterback in Brendan Sorsby. Senior day for the Bearcats. They're going to maybe fighting for their bowl lives at this point. Again, I think this is a close game. I think it's a winnable game. Home field advantage is going to play a big role. I think the Bearcats get the job done. But then they do come back home, and they will beat UCF, a team that will struggle in the return of Scott Frost. Over 67 new players for the Knights this year. Not going to translate to a lot of wins. BYU stops the bleeding, get to win at home on senior day, and they finish the year 7-5. Now, I know a lot of people will frown upon that. How dare you think that we'll go from a 10-win team in 2024 to a 7-win team in 2025. And again, maybe you think they can beat Colorado. Maybe you think they can beat TCU or Cincinnati. At best, I think this BYU team is 9-3. I think the ceiling for the Cougars this year is 9-3. They are taking a step back. When you lose your veteran quarterback, especially this late in the year, I mean, they lost him, and they knew there was an ongoing issue. We're not sure how that was going to pan out. I mean, about a month and a half before the season starts, that's a big loss. It kind of throws your offense into a tailspin. I don't think they're going to be derailed. I think they're going to tank or anything, but they're not going to be as good as they were last year. Factor in that last year's schedule was very favorable, kind of inflated a little bit. Factor in this year's schedule is a lot tougher, and the Big 12 as a whole is very tough. I just don't see BYU replicating last year's success. Again, I think the best case scenario is 9-3. Maybe we're on the low end at 7-5. I could see them beating Colorado. I could see them beating TCU or Cincinnati. I don't think they win both. I definitely don't think they beat Iowa State or Texas Tech, and maybe they don't even beat Utah. Maybe, that's a kind of an upset pick in a way. But regardless, it's another winning season for Kalani Sitake. I think all the stuff they've had to deal with, a winning season is acceptable. A winning season is a good mark, because again, considering everything they've had to go through, most teams don't have to deal with that. And then better days are ahead next year. I think they continue to build on that. They continue to recruit very well. They don't have any quarterback issues going into next season. In 2026, maybe they could return to that 2024 form. But regardless, 7-5 for BYU in 2025. Another winning season in Provo. So guys, as always, thank you so much for watching us here at the Gridiron Expert on YouTube. Make sure to continue to like, comment, subscribe, share our videos, and check out everything down in the description below. That includes our website, thegridironexpert.com, home to our expert picks, some of the best college football and NFL spread picks in the entire country. Do not miss out on those. The link for it down in the description below, along with our weekly newsletters, also over on thegridironexpert.com. Take advantage of those. Become a member of our GE Nation today. And once again, as always, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time right here on The Gridiron Expert.